Let's rewind for just a second to kick off this explainer. Back in 1987, the Nobel Prize-winning economist Robert Solow made this really famous observation. He quipped, "The computer age was visible everywhere except the productivity statistics." It was a classic paradox, right? Everyone suddenly had these chunky computers sitting on their desks, but the hard, traditional economic data wasn't showing any kind of massive boom in human productivity. Well, today, we are staring down a brand new version of that exact same paradox. Artificial intelligence seems to be absolutely everywhere. It's in our news feeds, our apps, our stock portfolios, but its real-world impact is surprisingly hard to pin down in the actual economic data. Are we genuinely using this tech to change the economy, or are we all just talking a really big game? Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cutting through the massive hype surrounding artificial intelligence and zooming in on the hard reality of how it is actually being used by real people every single day. We're totally bypassing the science fiction headlines and digging directly into the data to see where AI is genuinely transforming work and life and where it's frankly falling a bit short of the promises. We have a massive amount of incredibly cool data to cover today, so here is our roadmap for making sense of it all. 1. The new AI paradox. 2. AI at work, the reality. 3. Assist, not automate. 4. The hidden home economy. 5. The global AI divide. And 6. The AI reality check. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The new AI paradox and Google's Atlas study. So, to begin making sense of this whole paradox, we really need a map. And thankfully, we finally have one. We are basing our analysis today on a groundbreaking new economic research initiative straight from Google called the Atlas Study. The foundation of this entire explainer really rests on this one staggering number, 15 million. Google researchers mapped out 15 million completely de-identified, privacy-preserved interactions across their AI tools. And they didn't just count these interactions up. They used highly sophisticated algorithms to map these conversational queries directly to traditional labor frameworks. We're talking official government occupation codes and time use surveys. This gives us this unprecedented, granular look into exactly what humanity is asking AI to do right now across 800 different occupations and 4,000 specific tasks. Moving to Section 2, AI at work, the reality and shattering white-collar myths. Let's take all that incredible data and march straight into the office. There is a super common myth floating around that AI is strictly a white-collar phenomenon. You know, that it's only really useful for software engineers and copywriters. Let's see what the data actually says about that. Now, when you look at the raw data, it actually does sort of validate that white-collar myth at first glance. Computer, math, and finance jobs are vastly overrepresented. They account for nearly 30% of all AI usage, despite making up just a tiny fraction of the actual US workforce. They are undeniably the power users of this tech. But if we stop our analysis right there, we miss the real story completely. Because when you zoom out and look at the broader picture, the landscape shifts dramatically. AI usage is actually observed across 68% of all detailed occupations. When you weight that by employment, we're talking about a staggering 88% of the total US workforce being exposed to AI. We're seeing real, measurable usage from farmers, from healthcare practitioners, from foresters, and industrial engineers. AI absolutely hasn't stayed confined to a fancy desk. It has permeated almost the entire economy. But here is the catch. While usage spans the vast majority of the economy, there is a very clear economic skew to who uses it the most intensely. The data reveals that intense AI users have a median salary of about $83,000. That is roughly $20,000 higher than the actual employment-weighted national median in the US. In fact, researchers found that just a 1% increase in an occupation's median earnings is associated with a more than 2.5% jump in AI usage intensity. This proves pretty definitively that intense AI adoption highly correlates with wages and education levels. Basically, the more education your job requires and the higher it pays, the more heavily you're likely leaning on AI right now. Section 3, Assist, not automate, and the reality of day-to-day tasks. Now listen, if you're terrified that AI is going to automate your entire job tomorrow and replace you with a glowing screen, this next section is exactly what you need to hear. Because knowing what jobs use AI is one thing, looking at what they are actually asking it to do is a whole different ballgame. This breakdown perfectly illustrates the reality of user intent. Look at the data for manual tasks. Over 82% of interactions are just folks asking the AI to fetch information or help them learn a new concept. And for those complex, non-routine cognitive tasks that make up the bulk of knowledge work, attempts at full end-to-end automation make up less than 10% of interactions.
The vast majority of usage is for things like drafting an email, brainstorming ideas, or retrieving specific information. AI is acting as a collaborator here, not a replacement.
Furthermore, this assistive reality is totally reshaping manual labor in ways you might not expect. Remember how we saw AI spreading across all occupations? The data shows that manual laborers, think automotive technicians or industrial mechanics, are using multimodal AI at more than double the normal baseline rate. They're actually snapping photos or taking videos of complex test results, frayed electrical wiring, or worn-out machinery, and asking the AI for hands-on diagnostic help right on the shop floor. They aren't automating their hands, they're augmenting their eyes and their real-time problem-solving skills.
All right, Section 4, the hidden home economy and AI after 5 p.m. Let's see how all of this builds when we finally leave the office. We spend so much energy debating AI's impact on our 9-to-5 jobs that we completely ignore the fact that the vast majority of AI interactions actually happen after 5 p.m. Welcome to the hidden home economy.
Get this. The ATLS researchers actually mapped AI usage against the American Time Use Survey, which tracks how we spend literally every minute of our days. Amazingly, they found that AI touches activities that make up 98% of Americans' waking hours. That's everything from researching a big purchase, to planning interior design, to figuring out how to fix a broken appliance. In fact, a staggering 86% of conversational AI interactions happen entirely outside of work contexts. It's a massive hidden wave of adoption happening right inside our living rooms and kitchens. And when you compare human time spent versus AI use, the contrast is super revealing. AI is heavily overrepresented in high-friction administrative life tasks. Think about things that require specialized knowledge, like navigating a government bureaucracy, untangling financial services, or digging into a tricky purchase. But when it comes to relaxing, eating, or routine physical chores, AI usage plummets to near zero. We are clearly using AI to bypass the frustrating mental friction of managing our lives, not to replace the enjoyable or physical parts of actually living them. And the economic ripple effect of this is absolutely profound, even if traditional metrics like GDP completely miss it. If using AI for these annoying, high-friction life admin tasks, like summarizing a dense legal document or troubleshooting that broken dishwasher, saves the average person just 30 minutes a week, researchers calculate that equates to a $100 billion unpaid economic boom in the US alone. It is an explosion of household productivity that gives us back our most precious resource, our time.
Section 5, the global AI divide and worldwide adoption trends. So we focused a lot on the US economy so far, but the Atlas data actually spans 150 countries and 140 languages. And it reveals some fascinating and honestly sometimes concerning global divides in how this technology is rolling out. For instance, different parts of the world are using this tech for entirely different things. While advanced Western economies use AI really heavily for complex math, business, and finance tasks, the data shows that emerging and developing non-OECD countries use it way more for arts, design, and administrative support. In fact, users in those emerging economies are generating images and videos for work at roughly twice the rate of users in advanced economies. It's just a completely different flavor of adoption. And the excitement around this is definitely not just a Silicon Valley echo chamber. If you look at global search interest for AI topics, it's heavily concentrated in emerging economies across South Asia, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And remarkably, despite English largely dominating the development of these models, English queries only make up about a third of global AI conversation volume. People are very confidently sticking to their native languages, even for highly complex, multi-step professional tasks. But here is the harsh reality check. Excitement doesn't always equal adoption. As this data highlights, a country's wealth dictates its AI usage almost perfectly. A 1% increase in GDP per capita is associated with a 0.9% increase in AI usage. Because of this steep curve, the lowest adopting quintile of countries accounts for only 2% of total conversations. It's not a totally perfect rule, though. Several middle-income nations in places like Latin America and the Middle East are completely defying this trend and adopting AI at rates comparable to Western Europe. So the divide is very real, but it is incredibly dynamic and shifting fast. Which brings us to Section 6, the AI reality check. And where do we go from here? Let's pull all 15 million of these data points together to figure out what this actually means for you. The hard data proves that the popular narrative is missing the mark. AI adoption is incredibly broad, touching nearly 90% of the workforce, but its penetration into any single job is surprisingly shallow. Right now, it's acting as a highly educated, highly paid assistant for those frustrating, non-routine cognitive tasks, rather than a robotic replacement capable of fully automating your job.
Plus, we're totally missing the massive $100 billion hidden value it's creating by stripping the friction out of our household administration. And globally, while wealth definitely dictates adoption today, that map is being rewritten in real time. So as this technology continues to evolve faster than perhaps any innovation in human history, we really have to look in the mirror. It's not about whether AI is going to take your job, it's about how you adapt to an environment where everyone has a brilliant assistant in their pocket. We have to ask ourselves, how are you actively choosing to use this tool in your own daily routines? Are you just trying to blindly hand off your responsibilities, or are you using it to supercharge your own understanding and get your time back? The data shows, for sure, that the winners are doing the latter. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to decode the systems shaping our world.